Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing? Man, Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? How we doing? Today, answering your questions. Today's question I got is, what was it like facing Greg Maddux, a Hall of Fame pitcher, in my first ever major league at bat? Was I nervous? Was I given a lot of thought? I get this question a lot, not only online, but whenever I'm talking baseball and somebody finds out that I faced Greg Maddux or I got a hit off Greg Maddux in my first at bat, they always ask me, "Oh man, what was it like facing Greg Maddux? What were you thinking?" So let's go into that today. Couple things. First, Greg Maddux, obviously Hall of Fame pitcher. I faced him when he was like 40 something years old. So I got to face him at pretty much the very end of his career. I think he retired. He retired very shortly after I faced him. That's the first thing. So I didn't face him when he was in his prime. He still was a good pitcher. But one thing that I think helped me is that at that point in his career, he never threw, well, early in his career, he threw really hard. But when he was really dominating, it's not like he had overpowering stuff, at least fastball wise. He had a lot of movement. He had a great changeup. He had good feel for obviously what he was doing. He had probably some of the best control of all time. But as a hitter, he's not somebody that when you face, at least at that point in his career, that you were super intimidated by, because he didn't have like overpowering stuff. It wasn't like I had to face Clayton Kershaw, or actually faced Clayton Kershaw in my second game, but I think he was a rookie that year. But it's not like I was facing Clayton Kershaw today, or, at that time, Ubaldo Jimenez was like close to winning the Cy Young. He was a stud throwing close to 100 miles an hour. If you go into a game facing somebody like that, I feel like there's a bigger chance of you getting embarrassed, where he could throw, you could go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. If you were when I faced Ubaldo Jimenez a couple weeks later, he was throwing 90 mile an hour sliders. He was throwing close to 100 mile an hour fastballs that were doing this. He struck me out on 3 straight sliders. So if you're facing a guy like that, I probably would have given it more thought, like, I could strike out 4 times today. But honestly, when I was facing Maddux, I wasn't super worried. I wasn't really worried at all going into the game. Obviously, it was a huge name guy, but like I said, it was towards the end of his career. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is, I was much more nervous about playing defense my first ever game. I didn't even really think about my at-bat. Throughout my entire career, from the time I was really little, I always loved to hit, and I didn't really like to play the field very much. Like, I was always a kid, like, if you said, "Hey, let's go get some work in," I always wanted to hit first. Like, that was what I really enjoyed about baseball. I played defense because they made me play defense. If they didn't make me play defense, I would have just hit all the time. And so in that game, I was hitting eighth. They put me in the 8 hole. And so I played defense before I ever came up to bat. And I think I've told this story once before, but I'll tell it again. I'm not sure if I did. When I was on defense that first inning, I was like thinking the whole time. I was, a lot of times when you play baseball, you just play. But I wasn't just playing at that point. I was like, all right, I'm in a major league game here for the first time in my life. Don't F this thing up. And the first hitter was Russell Martin for the Dodgers, and he hit a hard ground ball right to me, first play of the game for us on defense. And that whole time that ball's coming, it was hit really hard. It was actually probably a good thing it was hit really hard, so I didn't have to think about it. But I remember getting down and fielding the ball and like looking down and being like, thank God it's in my glove. And then I threw the ball to first, and I was like, please go to the first baseman. And the first baseman caught it, threw the ball around, and then like after that, I got really calm. I went from like kind of nervous, pretty nervous, to really calm because I got that first play out of the way. So when I got up to hit, I like felt no nerves at all. I almost felt like it was just any other game. I know I tell people that and they're like, there's no chance, you're facing Greg Maddux your first at bat. But honestly, the first ground ball was like the most nerve-wracking thing. Now, if I had gotten up before I ever got that ground ball, Perhaps I would have been more nervous because the at-bat would have been kind of the first thing I did in a Major League uniform. But the ground ball got a lot of it out of the way. So when I stepped up to the plate against Greg Maddux, my first at-bat, literally, I'm not kidding, it was like any other at-bat. It felt like an at-bat from the minor leagues. You know, obviously the stadium was bigger and there was a lot of people in there, so that felt a little different. But as far as hitting, as far as my nerves and stuff, I just literally hit. And, you know, I think he threw strike one. Again, on the video, I think he's only throwing like 84 miles an hour. So the ball's got a lot of movement, but nothing super overpowering where he didn't have like strikeout stuff. As a hitter, I think when you're thinking about facing guys, and people say like, oh, you're nervous hitting certain guys. Like well, at least for me, whenever I face somebody that didn't have overpowering stuff, like sometimes you go 0 for 4, but you were never like, oh man, like I'm in trouble today. Usually, a lot of times you face those guys, you go like 0 for 4 and you're like, you go back to the dugout and you're like, how the hell did I not get a hit off of that guy? Like it doesn't mean they're not good pitchers. Some of the guys can continually get you out over and over and over again. And you just keep coming back being like, how am I getting out all these times? But you face the guy that has like power stuff with like 95 plus mile an hour fastball, or, you know, a ton of movement at 95, or a filthy slider or a filthy split or something. Those are the guys you're like, okay, I don't want to face this guy. So I went up there, threw me like an 84 mile an hour fastball for a strike, and then I think he threw me one for a ball, and then he threw me another one for a strike. It was like a two-seamer that kind of tilled back over the plate, and I hit a single to center field. So, honestly, in all honesty, that at-bat didn't feel very much different at all to all my other at-bats. Now, later in the year, you know, I faced Clayton Kershaw the next day. No one really knew who Clayton Kershaw was at the time. I mean, he was a high pick. He was a high first-round pick, but he was very young. I think it was his rookie year, or he'd just been called up or something like that. But there were other guys that year that I felt much different than I did that first at-bat against Greg Maddux. You know, like I said, when I faced Ubaldo Jimenez that year, I think might have finished second in the Cy Young Award that year. I mean, he was throwing fire, and he's throwing a slider that I'd never seen before, like a 90, 91 mile an hour slider. They struck me out on 3 straight of them. Other guys, Tim Lincecum was up at that time, which really Matt Cain was a big name pitcher that time, although I had my most success somehow against Matt Cain. I think I got 3 hits that game. Trying to think who else we faced that year that was really good. I mean, there was a decent amount of really good pitching, but thankfully I got to hit against Maddux at the end of my career, or at the end of his career. In the end of my career, my career was like this big, but at the end of his career. So that's kind of the thought process going into the game. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Let me know if you have any more questions in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and I appreciate that. Check out the description box below. I've got a bunch of stuff down there for you guys to check out that I think you'll like. And that's all I got. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.